welcome back to another video. I'm Sbathim Kize and this is my channel. If you are a regular liker, a regular sharer, honey, thank you so much for coming back once again. And if you're new here today, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here today, welcome back to the channel. No, honey, if you're new here, welcome to the channel. Make sure that you click that subscribe button and join the regulars. We are on the road. Are you ready for it? To 20K. Okay? 20K. Guys, we're on the road to 20K. We are literally sitting on 19,300 subscribers. Like, Ningobani. Who are you guys? Gintadan. Hey, guys. Okay, let me not ramble. Anyway, guys, we're on the road to 20K. Please do make sure that you subscribe. I'm gonna do little tangents and go off in Zulu, but I'll always come back. I promise I'll always come back. But anyway, thank you so much for getting us to 19,300, guys. I cannot believe how fast this channel is growing and how big our family is growing, and just the amount of love in my previous vlog from the lunch on Empowered. The Woman Empowered lunch on was incredible. I was extremely emotional. Like, if you watch that vlog at the end, you guys see that there was a moment where I was just like in tears. I didn't show the rest. Like, I was bawling. It was so amazing. Like, I was not ready for what God was doing that day, and I really am so grateful that I was a vessel, that he was able to do what he did for the ladies that day. And I will never take credit for that, because that is all God. And so it was really amazing to be able to capture that for you guys, and you guys are part of the day in some way. I have not started planning the next one, so please do not ask me for links, but you guys have really been asking for links for live streams. I'm really thinking about it, and I'm working on something, so definitely stay tuned for that announcement. So today's video, as you can see by the title, I am going to be breaking down or debunking myths and misconceptions about teaching in China. I think so many people, and I've picked this up on the comments, so many people are very hesitant to make that jump and move and apply and you know, move abroad, because you think certain things and certain things that you think, okay, were actually, you know, people projecting some of their thoughts and beliefs, stuff that you've seen on media and in television, and what the West believes about the East, which is China. So I thought, let me give you guys a little bit of context and give you guys, you know, and break some of those misconceptions, or rather like allow you to rethink and give you some information so that you can rethink and kind of unlearn some of those myths that you believe, because they are holding you back. Because life is great here, guys, in as much as things are difficult, about missing home, some of the things that I tell you guys that I go through, but honestly, like, it's not the end of the world for me, and I can handle it. And I feel like the bigger picture here is that I'm having a wonderful time here. I'm making a difference. I'm loving my job. I'm able to be a content creator. I'm able to do woman empowered lunch-ons, like things that I don't think I would be able to do in South Africa, you know. So I think definitely listen to these points. See if you are someone who believed these things before, and whether or not you're willing to kind of unlearn and start to rethink and do some research to kind of actually update yourself about the reality of the situation. So I'm going to list 4 misconceptions, and I'm actually going to explain why I'm going to debunk them and give you guys facts, because I live here. I've been here for 5 years now. I'm a teacher here, and I feel like I've gained some experience over the years. Okay, so the first myth, I've also got my points here, guys, so that I stay on track. And this is going to be a fun chat, but it's also going to be very informative, because I want you to make an educated decision. You know what I mean? Okay, so the first myth is that all Chinese parents want their kids to learn English. Now, this one is something that I definitely think it depends on where you're from and what you have been exposed to when it comes to the East and the education system. But for someone who's been here, someone like me, I know that the truth is English as a foreign language has a very low status when it comes to the academic discipline here in China. Like math, Chinese is ranked up very high, and English is not very high up there, even though a lot of these industries or like training centers, international schools invest invest a lot of money in bringing foreign teachers into the country. That's only because the Ministry of Education here in China insists that when a child is learning a foreign language, there has to be a native speaker present in the room, you know. And so that is why we are needed here, because there has to be the presence of a native speaker in the classroom when English is being taught. Because if that wasn't the case, Chinese teachers who have studied abroad, who know English, who are English teachers, can carry on without us. But because of the Ministry of Education and the law that they've placed that there has to be a native speaker in the room, that is the case. Now, with that being said, a lot of the parents who invest in classes for their kids to learn English online, go to schools that offer English lessons in part of their curriculum, those are people who have, one, a lot of money and are willing to pay that money for their child to learn English because they want their child to go study abroad, so that opens up more opportunities for them in college and university. 3, they want their child to be able to kind of have international experience and relations with people who are abroad when they travel because they have that funding. Another reason is that some parents want their kids to marry foreigners and they want their child to have options when it comes to dating. Honestly, this is something that I heard from one of my colleagues. It's like parents want kids to not just be in the box and be here in the East. Kind of think about out there in the West, you know, what's out there. And these are things that parents think about now for the child. Another thing they actually are considering when they are trying to put the child through English is that they want the family to have more, from the child. The child will kind of be more successful if they study English and they have more opportunities. So that will mean more income for the family in the long run. And so building the family name. So these are families usually who have a lot of money, and sometimes families don't have money, but they make a way for that child to go to that school. And it's so interesting because when I was working in the training center, we would send homework home, and we expect the kids to do the homework at home, but no one at home speaks English. The parents can't help, the grandparents can't help. So it was kind of difficult working in an environment like that because we knew that the child was the only person who was learning English as a second language, and they had to also do their own homework, and they depended a lot on the foreign teacher and the school system in itself. And so there's very much a lot of belief around the fact that, everything should happen at school and the child should be equipped enough to do everything at home on their own because the parent really doesn't know any English. And so that is why I say not all Chinese parents want their kids to learn English, because some parents just don't believe that English will open up more opportunities for their kids. Some parents believe that their child should study and work and live here in China forever and never want their kids to leave the country. And so those kind of things also influence why parents choose not to send their child to English speaking or bilingual schools. Another thing is that I think it's also important to mention that some parents just can't afford it and would love to but can't afford it. And so there's also a heavy emphasis that the general communication amongst Chinese people, even if they know English, is Chinese. That's the first mode of communication. Like if there are two Chinese people, for example, at work, my Chinese colleagues all speak English, but they will speak Chinese to each other first, which makes sense. So our kids, we're teaching them English, we're equipping them with English speaking and listening. And most of the time, those who can actually get into varsities abroad will go, and those that we teach that never get to the varsities and go abroad will probably never use that English again. And so it's kind of like, I don't want to say wasteful, but it's actually sad that we are doing so much for them and helping them, and some might not even be able to practice it at home, practice it while out and about, because no one speaks English. Everyone speaks Chinese, which is why I need to learn Chinese, honey. But I mean, this is one of the things that I feel like you guys always come for me for, and it's just like, I need to learn Chinese. I know, but so yeah, and not a lot of parents want their kids or can afford to send their kids to English lessons, and some just don't want to, you know what I mean? All right, the second myth I want to kind of debunk and chat about is that teaching English in China is fun and easy. Okay, so this one I feel like was something that I also believed when I first got here, based off what I heard and what was booming at the time, which was training centers. Training centers were definitely a less busier schedule, but definitely more demanding. I don't know if that makes sense. So the schedule itself was spread out. It wasn't back to back to back, but in the classroom, when you're in the classroom, it's very demanding because you have about 15 to about 25 kids where you have 40 minutes and you need to be on, okay? Energy levels. I'm telling you, phonics, I'm telling you, TPR, loud, projection, fun. The kids must be laughing. The kids must be having fun because a lot of it is that the training centers, when they hire the foreign teacher is the selling point. The foreign teacher is the face of the training center. And so parents pay for them. And so when the parents see the foreign teachers in action, and if the kid is not having fun, mind you, if the kid is not learning a word of English, you have failed. Mind you that this is like a foreign language. It needs time, but turnover time needs to be like this. And so it's very, very demanding, very competitive. And as foreign teachers, we go through the most. We are expected to produce miracles in a short space amount. In a short space amount, no honey. In a short space of time. Especially in training centers. I do feel like now in my international school, there's definitely not that pressure. There's realistic standards that have been placed, and there's an understanding that every child has different learning capabilities, and every child needs different things in order to get them to that point. But also they're not going to go at the same pace. And so that there's room for that. In the training centers, and I know also some kindergartens still very much believe in that. So I definitely want to debunk the fact that you're gonna come here and have a holiday, it's gonna be fun, and you're just gonna be chilling, and you're just gonna be speaking English like how you normally speak English at home, honey. No, there's a curriculum, there's teacher talk, there's a specific way they want you to teach, and you have to do it that way. And a lot of the ways that they want us to teach English is definitely not the traditional way how we were learning English. And so you definitely need to come with an open mind and come with a learning mind and a learning heart, because if you try to do what you know and think that that's the only way, you're going to fail and you're going to get fired and be sent home. The Chinese way of learning English is very much, ta-da! The child speaks English now. Not ta-da, but it's definitely like, ta-da! They learn a new sentence. Ta-da! Videos, this. While you're teaching, they're taking videos of you, honey. You need to be on, like jumping, and it's a lot. It's a lot. So please, don't believe that teaching English in China is easy and fun. Yes, in some extent, but I definitely think you need to make it fun, and you need to always think of the glass half full instead of half empty, because if you're not an optimistic person and a person that always looks on the bright side, you're gonna struggle here. You know what I mean? Yeah. Okay, so the next myth I want to chat about is that English teachers, or myth number 3, let me do the whole sentence. Myth number 3 is that English teachers teach English as a second language. Now, yes, this is partially true, but now I know some of you know now that I'm working in a training center, and before that I used to work I'm not working in a training center, I'm working in an international school. But before that I used to work in a training center and then a kindergarten, now an international school. And I always thought that most foreigners that are here, native speakers that are here, are teaching English as a second language. And you only teaching Chinese kids English. But this I'm now learning here in my international school, that there's actually a bunch of diplomats' children and people who are working here abroad as Europeans who come here with their families, and they put their kids into these international schools. And so you find that you are not teaching these kids English as a second language. You're teaching them as their first language. That is their speaking language at home. And it's been such a challenge when you're trying to create accommodations for them in the classroom, because you'll have a child who is very fluent in English, you know, and I know some schools have actual like Canadian curriculum. So these kids come from Canada, are in the Canadian curriculum, and there's a Chinese kid and a Canadian kid in the same classroom, and this child is going off in English, you know, and this one is struggling. And so you're supposed to create a meeting ground or a common ground here and accommodate both kids in the classroom, and that can be very difficult. And so I'm kind of saying this myth, but I know that not a lot of people work in international schools, or not a lot of people have been exposed to international schools like that, but I know that it's very evident, it's there. And if you ever find yourself in a situation like that, you need to kind of be able to create accommodations and differentiate your classroom to accommodate the higher level and the lower lower ability students, you know. And it's a really difficult thing when you're not a trained educator. So it's really, really important that you do your research about how you can do that. And it's minor changes like translations on your worksheet, having leveled worksheets, same activity but leveled, creating support for the kids that are low ability, and challenging and still having a challenge for those who are higher ability. So it's such a tricky space to be in, but I definitely think there's so much to learn. And once you've kind of mastered it, it's great because you are able to create a student-centered classroom where the stronger child is challenged and the lower ability child is still achieving the outcome, but they have their supports and their things that they need to get there. And as a teacher, you really need to try to create an environment, a learning environment where the higher ability kids are not looking down on the lower ability kids, but there has to be a common classroom culture that everyone learns differently and every way of learning is right. There's no right way, you know what I mean? There's no one right way. All of them are right and all of them are healthy. And so that is something that I've kind of been navigating now, trying to show the kids that even though Miss Ma is spending more time with this child, it doesn't mean that you are better than them, because now and because you also, Miss Ma, will need to support you in some way because I've given you a challenge that you will need support with, you know what I mean? So it's definitely something that I feel like you need to kind of be aware of, especially if you're going to work for an international school. The next myth I want to chat about is myth number 4. Every native speaker can teach English in China. Now, this is another one that I want to reiterate because I still see a lot of people in my comments who ask me, like, can I teach English? I'm from this country. Can I teach English? I'm from this country. And so I would love for all of us to come here and teach English, no matter where you're from. But, you know, China has its ways and its laws and have kind of set a bar when it comes to native speakers who can teach English in this country. And so they have placed European passports, Canadian passports, US passports, New Zealand, Australia, as well as South Africa as the countries who are native speakers. But I do know some people who aren't from those countries who still get into international schools and other schools based off their qualifications. But by law, these are the countries that I've just mentioned before who are the native speakers, who qualify as the native speakers in this country, and those people can teach English as a foreign language here in China. Now, another thing I want to mention is that China, not only China, but like China does have a very, very zero tolerance law on teachers or people who are coming into the country to work should not have any criminal record. So they will do a police clearance on you. So it's very, very important that you know that, because without a clear police clearance, you won't be able to get a work permit in this country. Like, there's no room for debate. Like, it's not gonna happen. And so with the nationality thing, I think it's definitely something that I feel like is changing, it's evolving. I've met a bunch of people who are from Kenya, Nairobi, I just said Nairobi, but that's the same place, but Kenya, where else? Ghana, where else? Another African country, but like Zimbabwe, people who are here on different visas but get teaching jobs and then they work. So I feel like there's a way. I probably don't know every single way, but I know by law, these are the countries that I mentioned before are the people who can actually get work permits and stay visas in this country to teach English as a foreign language. Obviously, you also need to have a TEFL and your bachelor's degree. If you have a bachelor's degree, you don't need your TEFL, but it's advised to get one because, like I said, the way of teaching in South Africa is not the same way of teaching here in China. There's definitely things that are completely different, curriculums are different, and your workload is very, very different in terms of your responsibilities and things like that. So it's definitely something you need to be aware of when you are coming into China. So yeah, my loves, those are the 4 myths I wanted to chat about. Myth number 1, all Chinese parents want their kids to learn English. Not true. 2, teaching English in China is fun and easy. Partially true, but not true all the time. Every native speaker can teach China in English. Myth number 3, every native speaker can teach English in China. That's also not very true, because there are other native speaking countries, English speaking countries, that are not allowed to teach English in China. And then the last one is myth number 3, is English teachers can teach English as a second language. Like I told you, in international schools, you will find situations where there are English first language speakers, home language speaking English kids in your classroom along with the second language speaker. So it's like, how do you accommodate? And the last one is the native speakers that can teach English in China. Only the US, the UK, South Africa, US, UK, South Africa, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. So yeah, guys, that's what I wanted to share with you guys. It's definitely like something that you need to think about when you're applying, and definitely be aware of. And just, you know, drop a comment if you are someone who's been thinking one of these myths before and have learned something new. I think it's important for us to learn and hear what's happening in real life, and not just what's happening when you read articles and what you hear from other people. It's definitely to get different, you need to get different sources from different people. So yeah, that's all I wanted to share with you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this quick, informative video. I will see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to click that subscribe button so you can join the regular regulars. We are on the road to 20K. I will see you guys very, very soon.